If you've been struggling with food allergies or food sensitivities, here's a new twist on an old theme you're going to want to know about. Hi, I'm Dr.Arland Hill, and if you've been struggling with food allergies or food sensitivities or think that this may be associated with some of the symptoms that you've been having, well, I've got good information for you today that you're going to want to stay tuned for. Food allergies and food sensitivities are fairly common. In fact, they're more common than they used to be. When I first started practicing, we did see some of these, but now they're much more prevalent and for multiple reasons. And those are some of the things I'm going to share with you today. It may seem that if you have an allergy or a sensitivity that it would simply just be as easy as eliminating that item from your diet. In fact, that's not actually the case. Sometimes what we see, and some of you may have even experienced this, that when you eliminate those items from your diet, you find that in 6 months or so, you're reacting to a whole new set of foods. Why is that? Well, the answer is that there's an underlying dysfunction that's never been addressed, and that's what we need to talk about. And before we go too far down that road of explaining that, I want to give some additional context to food reactions. Food reactions can be divided into two categories. On one side, we can have reactions that are related to the immune system. We call these allergies, sensitivities. On the other side, we can have reactions that are not immune system related, and we often classify these as intolerances. This is often what someone might think about as a lactose intolerance. You're not allergic or sensitive to lactose. You're just simply intolerant to it, maybe because of an enzyme deficiency or other rationale. But why does that perpetuate? What are some underlying themes that we need to know about? Well, specifically when we're talking about allergies and sensitivities and this immune system component, the reason the immune system reacts to these items is because it's dysregulated. So if we don't isolate where this dysregulation is coming from, then we really never are going to be able to fully address the reactions to various foods and ultimately the frustration that comes along with reacting to one group of foods now and another group of foods later. So let's dive into this. I want to give you two things that you need to know about here. Number one, nutrient deficiencies. What kind of things are we talking about when I say nutrient deficiencies? Well, first of all, we're going to be looking at nutrients like vitamin D, vitamin A. These nutrients are of critical importance. They are literally the regulators of the immune system. Without these valuable nutrients, another example of this being omega-3 fatty acids, fish oils as they're often known. Without these valuable nutrients, the immune system doesn't have the core resources that it needs to be able to govern between what type of reaction it should have. Should it develop a response against that otherwise benign food substance you're consuming, or should it leave it alone? It loses that ability when these nutrient deficiencies are in place. But it doesn't end there. The other thing that you need to know about is what is known as dysbiosis. Now, what does dysbiosis mean? Dysbiosis is in contrast to eubiosis. Eubiosis being an ideal state of balance of microorganisms in the gastrointestinal tract. Dysbiosis, on the other hand, being an imbalance of these organisms in the gastrointestinal tract. Now, I'm going to speak generically for a moment, and if we think about organisms in the GI tract as being good or bad, and please keep in mind that they are nowhere near that simple. There are certain times when some organisms are of a beneficial nature and at other times they're not beneficial. But bigger theme here is that when we have a predominance of the beneficial organisms, what we often think about as probiotics, these are going to balance the immune responses. These organisms directly interact with the immune system. They have direct contact with the immune system cells, and they govern the types of immune system cells that are ultimately produced and that proliferate. These can influence whether or not you react to a food through an allergic response or through a sensitivity response. In contrast, though, what about dysbiosis? How does dysbiosis cloud this picture? Well, dysbiosis is going to be defined by potentially an increased presence of pathogenic organisms, which can be bacteria, they can be viruses, they can be parasites. We may have an overgrowth of opportunistic organisms, organisms that are normally found in the gastrointestinal tract, but just shouldn't be there in abundant quantities. When these states of dysbiosis exist, there's abnormal communication to the immune system, and the immune system becomes more reactive. It becomes what is known as hypervigilant. It starts reacting at times when it otherwise should not be reacting. So, if we really want to get to the core of food allergies and food sensitivities, we cannot do that without looking at our nutrient levels or without looking at the balance of organisms in our gastrointestinal tract and defining whether or not we have a state of dysbiosis. If we can do that, which can both be done with lab testing to find your specific needs, when that is done, we can definitively set up interventions to be able to offset that, remediate the dysbiosis, create more of a balanced state in the GI tract, not just for the organisms, but for the crosstalk of the organisms with the immune system. So, if you're thinking food allergies, food sensitivities, yes, you may need to eliminate some items from your diet, but I would also emphasize to you, you need to look at your nutrient status as well as the organisms that are making up your GI tract environment. With that being said, guys, I want to thank you for joining the video today. I look forward to sharing additional information with you, and stay tuned. I'm Dr. Arland Hill. Thank you again.